Give you a couple of statistics over many years just to kind of indicate for our viewers how long this increase in the use of antidepressant medication by your field has been going on. So we found a Reuters article from 2009, so that's almost 15 years ago. The title of which was "Antidepressant Use Doubles in the United States, Study Finds." And it said the use of antidepressant drugs in the United States doubled between 1996 and 2005, probably because of a mix of factors. Researchers reported on Monday about 6% of people were prescribed an antidepressant in 1996, 13 million people. This rose to more than 10 million, this rose to by 10% or 27 million people by 2005, the researchers found. And then more updated data from the CDC says the same thing. It just keeps increasing. 2015 to 2018, 13.2% of adults age 18 and over use antidepressant medication in the last 30 days. It's higher among women, 17.7%, and it increased with age overall in both sexes. It's just every demographic field, every age, not just in the last few years, but for a couple of decades and now, it's just an explosion of these medications. What is going on with that?
Well, in January, in 2020, it was also reported that the diagnosis of anxiety went up 36% in 1 year in the United States. And in 2017, 40 million adults now suffer from anxiety disorder. And these medications, the so-called antidepressants, they're also prescribed for anxiety. So the number of people that are being prescribed medication, not to mention all the kids, the millions who are being diagnosed with ADHD and being medicated with stimulants, the statistics for all mental health disorders are going up and up and up. The number of Americans overdosing last year, you may be aware, more Americans died, almost twice as many Americans died in 1 year of drug overdoses than died in the Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghan wars put together. And these numbers keep rising. So there's something happening to the mental health of the population. And the response of the medical profession is to see it as a biological problem purely and to try and change the biology of the brain. Now, having said that, the antidepressants, or you might also call them anti-anxiety medications because they also work for anxiety, they can help some people. To confess, I've taken them myself with benefit, but they don't work as well as they're meant to work, number one, for a lot of people. Number two, their rationale for their use is scientifically untenable, unproven. And thirdly, the biggest problem is that even if they work, which sometimes they do, they're only dealing with the symptom, not with the underlying problem. And our profession, my profession, is just not educated to deal with underlying dynamics that lead to what we call mental illness. We just deal with the manifestation. So we're actually missing the boat when it comes to treating people. And some of that is due to the narrowness of the medical ideology. Some of it is due to the very clever manipulation of research by the drug companies. And in general, in the Western capitalist ideology, that people are individuals and their problems are individuals. And let's not look at the broader social and traumatic issues that really cause mental illness.
So I know there's a lot going on here, and I want to talk about some of the other issues, but we just did a segment on the profit motive of war. Obviously, during COVID, there was a lot of discussion about some of the profit motives driving a lot of early and rapid approval of certain medications that didn't end up working nearly as well as they said, things that didn't really, people didn't have a good grasp on. So in terms of profit motive, when it comes to dispensing these medications, there's usually two components of it. One is it's a lot easier from a financial perspective to go to a doctor, and instead of delving into your childhood traumas and all your difficulties, they just write a prescription and send you on your way, and you go back 2 months later and they check on your physical symptoms. But also there's obviously a big profit motive in the pharmaceutical companies selling these medications in massive numbers. Is it too cynical to think that those are, even though there's other factors, and I want to talk about them, that those are significant factors in the explosion of the prescription of these medications?
Well, look, when I was a family physician, I drank the Kool-Aid, for a while. Somebody would come in with what I perceived as symptoms of depression, and I would blithely and very sincerely explain that what you've got is a lack of serotonin in your brain. Let's give you a medication that increases serotonin levels. Serotonin is an important neurotransmitter, chemical messenger in the brain, and this will fix your problem. And sometimes it did. But what I was saying was scientific hogwash. There's absolutely zero evidence that low serotonin levels cause depression. And the ideology that it does was very cynically promoted by the pharmaceutical companies despite any lack of evidence. And there was a very interesting guy called Robert Whitaker, who used to be head of medical publications at Harvard University. And he wrote a book called Anatomy of an Epidemic. And he also wrote for the Boston Globe, I think. And he was a sincere believer in this hypothesis that lack of serotonin causes depression until he started looking for the research. And he couldn't find any. And at first he couldn't believe his eyes. And then he went to the experts and they said, oh yeah, there's no such evidence. It's just a metaphor. And so that metaphor really took hold in the medical profession. And what research do medical professionals see was published in the medical journals? Who funds the research? The pharmaceutical companies, who have a clear interest that their product be sold and propagated. And so to say that there's nothing cynical about it, it's just how it works. And it wouldn't be the only example.